Our offspring, whether in the spirit or in the flesh, will paint a picture of what we have sown in the earth or in heaven. In other words, our offspring will have been the seed that we planted in the past. And it is our intent that what we do sow will blossom into a beautiful flower. In our session today, we will see exactly what were the consequences of Adam and Eve's disobedience to the words of Yahweh. I'm Dr. Ray, and welcome to this week's Hosea International Speaks. In our last session, we left off with Yahweh dealing with the serpent, and I put / Satan. Remember, it was the serpent that gave access to Satan to use him or it as an instrument of deception in order to bring down Yahweh's creation, man. And we said that we need to be vigilant as to how we allow others to influence us when it comes to how we live our lives. Acts 17:11 says this, that the men of Berea were more noble than the men of Thessalonica, in that when they received the word, they received it with all readiness of mind. Then they went and searched the scripture daily to see if those things that were preached were so. Notice that word, that they searched the scriptures daily to make sure that that which was spoken was true. All right, let's get back to today's lesson. What would be the consequences of Eve's disobedience? Notice what the scripture says in Genesis chapter 3:16. And to the woman, he, talking about Yahweh, said, I will greatly multiply the pain of your childbearing. The picture that is painted is one of toiling in the household. The labor would be painful. In other words, the pregnancy and giving of the birth would be painful. And also there would be the caring of the household, which would be numerous. And then it would even multiply as the kids, or you had more, come along. Note, with today's inventions, household chores have become easy. For example, you have a vacuum cleaner. You can clean the floor. Even now, you don't even have to have the vacuum cleaner. You have a remote that goes around the house cleaning the floor, so you don't need that. So you don't even need to be home, and your floors can get vacuumed. How about dishwashers? You no longer have to soap up and fill up a sink and then go ahead and wash them, rinse them, and then put them up. You have a dishwasher. You just throw it in, throw the soap, close it, press a couple of buttons, and in an hour or so, your dishes are clean. How about washing machines? You no longer have to use a scrub board and get down at the river and with the big pan and scrub and get all the dirt out, and then you still have to hang it and dry it. Today you have drying machines, you wash it, and then you throw them into your dryer, and then you pull them out and you shake them out, and then you can fold them and put them in the drawers. How about a blender? You no longer have to take a spoon and turn it and churn it. You just put your whatever you need in the blender, and it puts it all together. How about the air fryers? It makes it nice and easy. You no longer have to put your pork chops on the pot and then turn it over and sear it and everything and then cook it. Well, you can just put it in an air fryer, press a couple of buttons, and in so many minutes or seconds or whatever it takes, you have your meat and potatoes. How about the microwave? Just throw your potato in there, 5 minutes, and you got yourself a nice baked potato. Life at home couldn't be much easier unless now you have servants, which makes life a little more easier than that. And even when it comes to taking care of children, has become easier even still if you have, again, servants. Yahweh says that even in pregnancy, there would be some hardships. Now, when it comes to pregnancy, there is no easy way out. You're going to have some pain, ladies. How do I know? My wife had pain for 2 children. But then also there is what we call miscarriages when you lose one. Not only is that a loss to the household, but there's also as an empty feeling in the woman. And even so, when we have abortions. And even in all this, he continues to say, your desire will be to your husband. The word desire in the Hebrew is the word teshula. It means your longing, your craving will be to your husband. The picture that is painted for us here is the sense of stretching out after and to give all, to give abundance to your husband. It means that all the time will be given to your husband. This is a big one here because at times a woman might need some time for herself, and how her husband handles that part of marriage depends on how he helps out in the household. And with all of the many different apparatuses in the house, it gives the wife a lot more time to herself. And then the last phrase of the scriptures, and he will rule over you. The word rule in the Hebrew is yeh-mashal. It means to exercise dominion over, to reign, to cause, to rule, to have power. This is not as easy to swallow in today's society, but Paul gives us a word in Ephesians 5:25 when he says, husbands, love your wives even as Christ loved the ecclesia and gave himself for it. Jesus Christ is giving an example to the men. So ruling over your wife is not as macho as one would think. Unless being macho is giving all you have to her. As Weiss, in his translation, says, husbands, love your wife with a sacrificial love in its nature and in the manner in which Christ loved her, loved the church. Now, that's being macho. He also writes in Colossians chapter 3, verse 19, Paul says, be not bitter against her. That implies that the husband would love his wife with a divine love, which impels him to deny himself for their benefits. In other words, that both would benefit from his unselfishness. It also implies that if a husband loves his wife, it would not produce a bitter taste in the stomach, causing her to be embittered and become virulent towards him, which would cause a rapid and severe and destructive course. Well, enough for the marriage counseling. Let's get back to where the scripture talks to us. And finally, after he's talking to the woman, he says to the man, because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten of the tree which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground for your sake. That phrase, because you have listened, implies that Adam allowed the woman to subdue and tame him to her lifestyle. Literally, it means to tame and subdue with the hand, or better yet, to bend to another's will by giving all your attention to. Adam was led by another and not by Yahweh, and because of that, the ground would be cursed. Now, the word curse means to be anathema, something detestable. It implies that the head would lose the strength that was given. The strength of the head would be stifled. And note, the same labor, the same phrase, the labor the woman would go through in childbearing is the same labor that the man would endure in trying to secure sustenance for himself and the family when it came in order to procure food for himself and for those in the household. I want you to notice that the trees would not stop producing. In other words, the trees of the garden or the trees that produce fruit would not stop producing. But notice what was added. Thorns and thistles would be added to the list. He would now have to do away with this added hardship. He would now have to do away with this added hardship. He would now have to cut out that which might prohibit him from acquiring what is needed to survive. Then Yahweh says, in the sweat of your face you shall eat bread. The word sweat paints an unusual picture. It is one of having to use a plowing tool to turn the ground over in order to plant seeds. We can see where the thorns and the thistles come in when it comes to trying to harvest the crop. The man is going to have to deal with what we call weeds. He's going to have to deal with what would be a luxurious plant. Some plants, some weeds look pretty, but they're useless. That means the thistles and the thorns would be in abundance, but have no nutritional value. Now that Yahweh has given to each party responsible for their actions in causing sin to come into the restorative world, man would then start fending for himself. That is, seeking provision and protection. And the man now called his wife Eve because she was the mother of all living. The name Eve is the Hebrew word chava. It means to add to the security and protection from the elements or any invading forces. It means to live prosperously, to be quickened, and to be restored to life. Eve would give restoration to the life on earth, not in heaven, just on the earth. The generations that would follow would be because of Eve, the woman. There are certain portions of scripture that we would like to look more in depth, but we're going to be looking at those in the future because just don't have no time in this session. We'll be looking at them in the coming weeks. For example, and when the Lord said to Adam, behold, the man is become like one of us, knowing good and evil. Who was Yahweh talking about when he said man has become like one of us? And then we'll also be looking about what about the Garden of Eden? Where is it today? Or what happened to the tree of life or the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Where did those things go? And then we will look at Cain and Abel, the offspring of Adam and Eve. One produced life and the other produced death. So in the coming weeks, I want to invite you to invite your friends, your neighbors, and your family, and even your enemies to watch us each week. And if you like us, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you want to be notified when the next teaching goes up, right about here, I think, you'll find the subscribe button, and you will be notified and dinged when we go on. Well, I'm Dr. Ray, and I'll see you next week on Hosea International Speaks.